What is going on, Lucid fans? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to do a little bit more of a different type of video. Redlich did come out with a video saying that the Lucid's 10K was a complete bombshell. So I'm going to go through all of that with you. I'm going to watch the actual video with you and give you some highlights, whether I do feel that what he's saying is actual truth or if it's just a lie. And again, I'm going to elaborate on that as well. But before I get into any of that, all I ask, smash your thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Greatly appreciate that. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. And one thing as well, I just want to bring to your attention, because it is a massive promo and it's really good right now, that technically if you just click on the link below, you can sign up, get one free stock, each valued up to $3,500. And if you just deposit $1, you get another free stock, again valued up to $3,500. But there is also a promo, you get one free share of NEO. So you get two free stocks valued up to $3,500 and one share of NEO just by depositing $1. So it's a very good promo. Definitely take advantage of that. Link in the description below. With that said, let's get right to it. So here's the video in question. Lucid Motors bombs SEC filing came out yesterday, March the 5th. And again, I'm just going to be doing this type of video, and I've said this in other videos in the past. Unfortunately, influential people such as Warren and obviously Meet Kevin, who have a lot of subscribers or voice in the market, can actually do a lot of damage. So by him saying stuff here, I'm going to go through, like I said, the truths and the lies, see what exactly is actually beneficial for us as investors to pay attention to, because at the end of the day, what he says can actually do a lot of damage and make people actually truly believe everything he says. So let's get right to it.
Hey, this is Warren Redlich. I'm wearing the critical thinking shirt. Latin for critical thinking is 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧. I want to talk to you about Lucid Motors with a critical eye. They just had their Q4 earnings call. They just had their SEC filing, which revealed some huge bombs. Are you ready? Let's go. The biggest news for Lucid Motors is the SEC filing was filed, and we got a chance to take a look at it. There's a lot of details in here. I got a few key points here. We're not going to go through a lot of this. And you can see on the Lucid website which documents have been filed. Some of this is not that important, but what we're talking about right here is the 10K. This is the annual filing. This is the thing you file at the end of Q4 that provides a comprehensive overview of the company for the past year. This provides more detail than what was in the presentation slide deck we looked at during the earnings call. And this is the big bomb. This is like the biggest bomb of all from the slide deck. This is unbelievable that they said this. We do not expect to achieve positive cash flow from operations for several years, if at all. Let me say that again. We do not expect to achieve positive cash flow from operations for several years, if at all. Now,
okay, so this is my recommendation on don't always listen to individuals like this, and earnings, especially 10Ks, are meant to cover the liability, and in many cases, they like to give the worst case scenario. And clearly Warren hasn't really looked at a lot of startup companies, and Lucid, regardless of what we think, is technically a startup company. This is their first year in production, was 2021. And in case you guys haven't followed my channel or subscribed, I do and have covered quite a lot of startup companies, and that is a very common one. And I did vaguely just pull up a couple that did stand out. Technically on Airbnb's earnings, it says that numerous times, and more specifically as well, another EV, there's Rivian. We do not expect to be profitable for the foreseeable future as we invest in our business, build capacity, and ramp up operations, and we cannot assure that we'll ever achieve or be able to maintain profitability in the future. So that is one thing that I do strongly feel isn't really much relevance, and he's just pointing that out to cause a lot of fear, because technically reading that does cause a little bit more of a concern among investors, especially if you haven't seen that terminology before. Okay, so moving on though, this technically is truth based on what he does say, but again, I think he's doing a little bit more of a manipulation and focusing so much on it when in reality, like I said, it's a very common terminology.
a lot of people are focusing on the if at all. The if at all is just, hey, we may never make money. That's an if. Operations for several years, if at all. Now, a lot of people are focusing on the if at all. The if at all is just, hey, we may never make money. That's an if. But they do not expect positive cash flow from operations for several years is the thing I think people should be focusing on. Why do I think people should be focusing on that? Because this is the Lucid Motors slide deck, and you can see right here, free cash flow. This is cash flow. And you can see that they projected, this is from May of 2021. This document is actually from July of 2021. This is the slide deck that went along with the SPAC merger. And they said they expected positive cash flow in 2025. Well, we're in.
Again, I already said this, but hands down, from July 2021 to now is a night and day different company. And I know, unfortunately, a lot of investors don't really like that, but especially, again, startup companies, there's a lot of different factors that change. They go different directions as far as business models. So yeah, their free cash flow did project 2025 being profitable, but that is largely because of technically Saudi Arabia, and they were going to be doing a lot of big things. And so technically, Saudi Arabia by 2024 was expected to start producing vehicles. So I do strongly feel that 2025 is largely because of that, and obviously the AMP as well. So again, this is old data and he's just focusing on it. Again, just a little bit more manipulation seems to be his common thing that he does do, but unfortunately it looks like a lot of people do like that.
In 2022 now, several years is after 2025. It's probably after 2026. So we are looking at Lucid saying we might achieve positive cash flow in 2027 or later. They've pushed making money off for 2 years or more. So if you're an investor and you bought stock in 2021 with the idea that this is a company, if you are a long-term investor and you're thinking this company's going to be successful, they're going to start making money like they say they will in 2025 according to their SPAC merger documents. Okay, I got to hold this stock for 3 or 4 years and then I'm going to start making, the company's going to start making money and the value of the company is going to become real, and it's going to become a valuable company. Now you invested money in 2021 and you're looking at 2027 or later. Now your time horizon is 6 years instead of 3. This is a radical change for long-term investors. And the company's saying we're not going to make positive cash flow for several years. They said it in 2022.
Just on a side note, technically by the time Lucid does get profitability, that's all going to be factored into the price. So you're not going to be seeing these $23 prices at that stage. So again, he's just causing a little bit more manipulation and saying it in a way that is going to cause a lot of investors to kind of second guess their investment. And the reason why it is at $23, it technically has a lot of value placed on it because of the technology and future growth, but also the fact that it is not a profitable company is also factored into the price. So that's why we are at $23, not $60, not $100, not 120. So yes, he's saying technically it is another truth, but again, it's just being conceived as a different thing. A little bit more manipulation, again, seems to be his thing.
You got to go at least 4 years out, really 5, because 3 or 4 is a few, right? So several is 5 or more. That's my take on several. Several is 5 or more. I'm trying to use critical thinking here. Several years. So 5 years, 6 years, you're looking at 2027 maybe that you're making money on your stock. And there's so many bad things that can happen. We've got a looming potential recession. We've got potential war. There's all these things that can dry up capital markets so you can't raise money. This goes along with their...
Again, my apologies for always stopping this, but you don't need to raise the capital. They even said in the earnings call that hypothetically we are good up until 2023 for the cash. We have $6 billion plus in cash, so we don't need any cash. We're good for that. So yeah, I completely agree that there is a lot of things that could go wrong, a recession, but it won't necessarily just affect Lucid. It will affect his little golden boy, Tesla. So just want to keep that in mind. Again, there's different ways how people can say that.
Announcement that they're reducing their forecast for how many vehicles they're going to produce in 2022 this year from 20,000 to 12 to 14,000. And if you listen to the earnings call, what they said was they do not expect to significantly ramp production until the second half of the year. So we're in March now.
Which is true.
They're not ramping yet. On their numbers, they delivered 125 customer deliveries as of December 31, 2021. We don't know how many of those were employees and board members and delivered to internal to the company. We don't know that, but let's give them 125 customer deliveries. They're saying over 300 customer deliveries to date. That's 2 months. They delivered 200 cars. That's 100 cars a month. That's a pace of 1,200 cars a year. So if they're not significantly ramping production until the second half of the year, that means through 6 months, they will have delivered 600 more cars for the year. 600 cars for the year. That means in order to hit 12,000, they got to ramp to 11,400. They basically have to like 10x their production in the second half of the year.
Okay, so this is his first lie. Hypothetically, we all know based on Bear's workshop, and we've been able to see how much production and deliveries that they've been doing, especially on that front. So technically right now, give or take, arguably, and very conservative, we are at around 30 vehicles per day as far as delivery and production. And again, you can tell that based on Bear's workshop, which keep in mind back in 2021 during Q4 and how they got to the 125 deliveries. Ultimately, they did that by only doing 8 vehicles per day, give or take. So yeah, it's night and day difference compared to what we are doing. And I know at the beginning of 2022 wasn't always the strongest start, which is again why we only got 300. But again, looking at Bear's workshop, there's many days recently that we are getting 50, 60, 40, all in that range as far as actual production and delivery. So on the average, we are at around 30. So again, keeping in line with exactly where we need to go to reach that 12 to 14,000 at the end of the year. And that right now isn't even factoring in, which I completely do agree with what he said, is that Lucid did reiterate during the conference call that in the second half of 2022, they are going to ramp up production. So right now, given all the circumstances, we are at 30 vehicles per day, and that's not even counting or factoring in a ramp up in production.
This really doesn't look good for Lucid. This is a bad look. And I did a poll on Twitter. I didn't save it here. I did a poll on Twitter. Nobody thinks they're going to make 12,000. Nobody thinks they're going to make 10,000. The longer it takes them to scale production of their vehicles, the longer it takes them to become profitable. There's this awful, it's sort of like the tyranny of the rocket equation. You got to make vehicles to make money. And if you can't make vehicles, you can't make money. And then over
That's
here,
true.
by the way, they surpassed 25,000 reservations for estimated potential revenues of $2.4 billion. I think that's $96,000 a car, up from $90,000 a car in the past. So they're getting more reservations for cars. But 25,000 reservations is not a lot.
You notice how he is very hesitant. That was a very big positive, and I know I completely do agree that the earnings wasn't necessarily the best, but that was one good attribute, and it's funny to see his face, how he tries to twist it, saying that 25 is the negative.
And if you're going to make 12,000 cars this year and you're not going to deliver the Pure, which is the high volume version of the vehicle that you're going to sell at a lower price, if you're not going to deliver those till the end of the year, maybe these people are waiting a long time. Are they going to cancel? Are they going to wait for you? I don't know. Another big deal that I saw in the SEC filing was that they have an agreement to spend $804 million to purchase battery cells over the next 4 years. That works out to about 70,000. I came up with 67,000 vehicles. You divide by $120 a kilowatt hour, and you divide by 100 kilowatt hours per vehicle, and you end up with about 67,000 vehicles, which works out to about 17,000 vehicles a year for the next 4 years. So either they don't have enough contracts for batteries for their expected production in the future, or they don't really expect to make that many vehicles in the next 4 years.
Okay, so this one topic I'm not really experienced in per se, but regardless, I'm going to trust his due diligence on this. So factoring in that is maybe truth, Lucid is doing forward thinking. So especially we've all seen about those positions in Taiwan. They're tentatively forward thinking as far as looking for problems that is coming. And we all know, happened with Tesla, happened with Ford, supply chain issues, more specifically chips, and Lucid is actually doing the right thing. And so that's why the whole Taiwan situation is they're trying to build contracts to avoid that kind of situation. So even if tentatively Warren is bringing up a possible issue as far as battery cells, that might be something that Lucid is already looking into, just they haven't really told us per se, unfortunately. And I do find it funny. I did personally watch this video because a lot of people, it was floating around at the time, but saying that the battery scam was exposed, and hypothetically he said it was 138 or 136 kilowatt hours, if I remember correctly. Again, I don't really want to watch it again, but ultimately it's funny how he's not bringing that up. He's actually going and sticking to pretty much what Lucid is saying. So I don't know what he's up to, or if he has actually been exposed based on that or whatever it might be, but at the end of the day, I'm going to trust what he says. But again, going back to this component about him saying that the battery scam, he's kind of exposing himself by not saying it's 138. So just keep that how it is. Remember, there is a lot of manipulation that occurs, and he does profit significantly based on all this manipulation.
Contracts for batteries for their expected production in the future, or they don't really expect to make that many vehicles in the next 4 years. Very, very interesting detail here. Where are they going to get the battery cell? If they do scale production, where are they getting the battery cells for scaled production? Or does this indicate we don't really expect to scale production? I mean, this is a big hole. This is a big question. I don't think it's that easy to secure additional batteries. Just because you have a contract for these batteries, it can get hard to get batteries. There's a lot of demand for nickel-based cells, and they're using nickel-based cells. They're using nickel-based 2170 cells. I can think of at least one other company that has a high demand for 2170 nickel-based cells. Tesla. Are you going to be able to secure more cells if you succeed in ramping production? Are you going to have problems with that?
Chips.
We don't have an answer to that. Another big bomb in their earnings call, they mentioned the CEO restricted stock awards in the earnings call. When you look in the SEC filing, what you see is that this is restricted stock units. The CEO, Peter Rawlinson, gets restricted stock units. And the board of directors approved the grant to Rawlinson of restricted stock units based on performance and service conditions. This is really striking that the time-based RSUs, the performance condition was satisfied upon closing the merger. The CEO performance RSUs, the performance condition was satisfied upon the closing of the merger. He's getting paid for closing the merger, not for producing cars, not for delivering revenue. Same thing here. The market conditions will be satisfied based upon the achievement of certain market cap goals. And wait a minute, what were those market cap goals? The market capitalization condition was met for 4 of the 5 tranches of the CEO performance RSUs, representing 14 million performance RSUs. He got 14 million shares, which at $20 a share, I think it's $24 right now, that works out to about $300 million or $240 million in stock. And they charged that as $85 million.
Okay, so in that regard, it is truth as well. I did read that, and that did stand out to me personally. But there is a lot of new mergers, especially when it comes down to a SPAC rollout. This is actually a very big deal. There's technically a lot of things that the CEO does have to do to secure a funding, investors, and so forth. It's not necessarily just signing a paper, going through a merger, and that is it. There's a lot of things that Peter had to do, and at the end of the day, he did also have to lay out pretty much that document as far as production, what the expectations are for Lucid over the next several years, and it's not necessarily, like I said, just signing a paper. So yeah, it might be a little bit high, but given that he is a CEO, and especially what he does bring to the company, in reality, it's just pennies, and it's going to pay for itself in the long run. We are also technically investing in Peter, right? And the management team. That's something that you can think about that a lot of people don't really always bring up.
Expensive $85 million given Peter Rawlinson $240 million worth of stock. That's an interesting little detail, but it's really striking that the conditions of the CEO Performance Award were related to getting the merger closed and getting the stock price up. They were not related to producing cars, delivering cars, getting revenue, making profits. None of that was a consideration in Peter Rawlinson's pay package. His pay package was based on getting the merger closed and raising the stock price, pumping the stock. He has no incentive in any of this to produce revenue or to produce profit or to sell cars. It's a striking pay package. They're paying him to pump the stock. This is stunning. They're paying him to pump the stock.
Peter's the most silent individual.
He pumped the stock. Just another note here, the company
anything.
now has 3,900 employees as of December 31, 2021. Maybe they're up to 4,000 employees. They've got 4,000 employees, and they're struggling to make 100 cars a month. 100 cars a month. They're struggling to make. They've got huge.
There was actually a very good post that did come out recently, and that compared Lucid and Tesla from at the beginning stages. Lucid does actually have more employees than Tesla did at the beginning stages, and Tesla had a significant amount of difficulty producing a number of vehicles, especially that they've had so many recalls. We actually have good quality, and Peter's even said that and reiterated that in the earnings call. So he's just, again, causing a little bit of manipulation. He's just reading out vague words and statements and twisting them to his own benefit. So again, this is how he is playing at all this.
Problems. In the earnings call, they talked about that the supply chain issues, we knew there were supply chain issues in July of 2021 when you did your SPAC merger. This is just ripe for another class action lawsuit. What did they know and when did they know it? They had to know there were supply chain issues in July of 2021. The ongoing crisis had been going on for a year and a half at that point. They had to know this was an issue, and they still claimed they were going to sell 20,000 cars in 2022. They haven't issued
technically from the earnings, it's not the same supply chain issues that Tesla and Ford is undergoing that he's referring to, which is chips, but more so Lucid's situation is more just glass and actual fundamentals, carpets. And that is largely because he even did say it's because of COVID. They can't go in and actually inspect the product. So that is one of the biggest things that is causing all of this. So especially since COVID fears are starting to subside quite a lot, I do anticipate that whole supply chain issue for Lucid to just go away. So that's one thing as well, completely manipulation of what he's saying. And technically, Lucid is actually better off than Tesla. We don't have the same supply chain issues that he's referring to. And I notice I have already watched this video again before doing this, and he doesn't technically bring up about it being actual just glass and fundamental things such as that. He's referring to, and the way he's talking about it, it's the same as Tesla.
Issued guidance for 2023 and beyond. They said they would issue guidance in Q4 of 2022 about 2023. Their Q4 guidance will be probably when they do their earnings call in late February or early March of 2023. So we're not going to get guidance on 2023 until 2023 has already started. This is a company that keeps putting off the future. It's really, I think one of the biggest things to me is if you believe in Lucid Motors, the idea that they are going to invest in their company and grow their company, okay. But if you're going to invest and grow your company, then why aren't you investing? Why aren't they building up? Why aren't they building? They're not investing as fast as they should be to achieve their goals. And I think they've gotten to the point where they realize we've got a cash flow problem. And they're actually holding off on investment. One other thing I wanted to mention here is that there's these additional documents, information on directors, executive officers, and corporate governance, executive compensation, security ownership of certain beneficial owners and management, relationships and transactions, and principal accountant fees and services. All of these are delayed to be filed within 120 days after December 31, 2021. For some reason, a bunch of documents that they are waiting for these documents, and these documents will not be filed with the SEC until end of April of December 31, something like that. I'm not sure how important that is, but it just seemed odd.
I agree with him. There is no importance to it whatsoever. He's just conceiving a lot of things and just twisting them, like I said.
Odd that you would wait 4 months to file certain documents that are related to your annual report. Don't they have enough accountants? You got 3,900 employees. You brag about your team. You don't have enough employees to get this done. It just seems questionable to me. The other thing that struck me about what happened for the Q4 earnings call and the news surrounding it was the announcement that they're going to build a factory in Saudi Arabia starting this year, although the factory won't be completed till 2025. It just seems like a really odd decision. We heard a lot of rumors that they would build a factory in Saudi Arabia. There was this claim that it's worth $3.4 billion in value to the company over 15 years with no explanation of what the $3.4 billion is. What do they mean it's worth $3.4 billion? Where does that money come from? Does that mean the Saudis are giving them $3.4 billion? No explanation of the terms of this agreement, which if you're communicating meaningful information to shareholders, you should be communicating that. Now, of course, the Saudis are roughly 2/3 shareholders in the company. I forget whether it's 63 or 62% of the company. You know, maybe they don't care, but this is not meaningful disclosure to shareholders. Shareholders are entitled to know what's going on here, and
I think by him even saying that 3.4 billion, that's more than information than a lot of other companies give. I've never seen Tesla, more so their Gigafactory that they are just undergoing and finally getting the final inspections on. They didn't say, okay, it costs this much and it's being attributed for this factor and this factor and this factor. No company does that. So the fact that he's actually just saying that Lucid should do that is completely mind-boggling. And the fact that he actually does bring up that there is going to be a lack of workers in Saudi Arabia is completely, again, just ignorance. And there is a lot of false things that he is saying. And in reality, just I personally don't like listening to him. Just again, he has a big following, so a lot of people do unfortunately take what he says as truth.
They don't know. I'm not a shareholder. I'm not a short. I'm just a critical thinker. I'm watching Lucid Motors. Why Saudi Arabia? I understand they're investing in Saudi Arabia because their biggest investor is Saudi Arabia, but this seems like an awfully dumb place to build cars. They're talking about potentially building 150,000 cars a year in Saudi Arabia, where Saudi Arabia and the Arab countries around Saudi Arabia do not have the demand to support 150,000 cars. So where are you going to export them to from Saudi Arabia? It's not really an ideal location for exporting to customers nearby India doesn't have a big enough car market for that. Africa doesn't have anywhere near a car market for that.
Saudi
Are you going
Arabia
to send them to
2030
China
plan.
from Saudi Arabia? It's kind of like the oddest idea ever. We're going to build cars in Saudi Arabia and ship them to Europe. Are you going to ship them to Europe?
Yeah.
Is Europe the destination for cars built in Saudi Arabia?
Mostly.
This is just an out there concept. And then, is Saudi Arabia really a good place to build cars?
Yes.
They don't have a history of building cars. They have an employee base to build cars. They're probably going to have to import employees from the Philippines and India and the Palestinians. Who knows where they're going to get employees from? Regular Saudis probably aren't going to work in a car factory. They're generally wealthy people. So how are you going to build this factory? Where's your supply chain for this factory? There's so many potential problems. You're going to have to ship parts from far away to Saudi Arabia. It's a very, very, very odd decision. And if I were a long-term shareholder, and I'm not, I would be thinking, what's the strategy here? This doesn't seem like a wise strategy. It just doesn't. I know the Saudis are trying to build this economic city, and maybe they're getting a lot of subsidies for it, but it's just not a great location to build cars. Do engineers you're going to need engineers to build this factory, to operate this factory? Do engineers want to live in some city in Saudi Arabia? It's going to be very hard to attract quality people. I think ultimately we're all rooting for EV companies to succeed, to see a transition to electric vehicles. I can't root for Lucid because I feel like they've been lying to us for so long, and they wait until the last minute to reveal the fact that they've been lying to us, and here's the new numbers. Very disturbing. They're still hiding.
That's just manipulation there. Like, the fact that he's saying that, no company ever tentatively comes out and does that. And especially Lucid's first earnings, like, they don't want to surprise us, especially with so many negatives. And especially, like I said already in the video, that their earnings weren't the best. There was a lot of positives to take from this, such as that the demand largely came from the States. That's a very good thing. I really do like that. Saudi Arabia as well, he's talking very negatively about that. That is going to be a very profitable aspect. And yeah, it is actually going to be shipping to Europe, so which is also going to be very profitable and hit that right market. And Saudi Arabia, the fact that he's saying that no Saudi Arabians, or whatever, if I'm saying that correctly, will want to work in those factories, that is just complete ignorance. But just moving on.
Numbers for another until the end of April. A lot of bombs here, but the biggest bomb, let's just go back to it just for to close this out. The biggest bomb is we do not expect to achieve positive cash flow from operations for several years, if at all. Okay, leave aside the if at all. The if at all is lawyers being careful with language. But we do not expect to achieve positive cash flow from operations for several years is really bad. For a company that said it was going to be positive cash flow 2025 to say now we don't expect to be positive cash flow till 2027 or later is just bad. That's bad for shareholders. It's stunning that the stock hasn't fallen more. As I look at it, the stock is now down to $23 a share, $22 a share. It's fallen substantially. We're still talking about a $38 billion company that is struggling to make cars. You know, people say, well, it's not fair to talk about Lucid this way. Look at, where Tesla was when they had their IPO. Yeah, Tesla was valued at $1.7 billion at their IPO. And they had already made more cars than Lucid has made to date by a lot.
And that, hands down, is, again, like, clearly he doesn't understand what basic economics and what money supply is, and especially since when Tesla IPO'd, there was a very big difference. Multiples have changed big time. As far as future values placed on technology, it is completely night and day difference. Again, he must be stuck in the Tesla IPO stages to actually think that Lucid coming out would be only valued at $1 billion, because we all know every stock, whether it not necessarily is just Lucid, if there's a stock that you do like that has a lot of high potential in the future, whether it be because of growth or their technology, the market does appreciate that and builds that into the price. That is exactly why Lucid is the price that it is, and technically the market cap that it is. So I personally don't think that it's overvalued one bit. So he's going on a rant and a tangent about all of this, but again, I personally feel it's overdone.
Lucid is valued at $38 billion, which is 20 times what Tesla was valued at when they had their IPO. How are you possibly going to achieve your goals? And then if you push out your production and you push out commercial success far enough, there's so many things that can happen in the marketplace that can undercut your potential to succeed. A recession, an inability to raise capital. The Saudis decide, you know what, we're gonna give up on you. The danger that Tesla achieves robotaxi and the market for cars radically changes in a world of robotaxis. So many different things get thrown. Mercedes succeeds in making a better EQS. Porsche comes up with the next generation Taycan. These vehicles compete with the Lucid Air. Somebody comes up with an EV that's highly competitive with the Lucid Project Gravity. Are they even going to achieve Project Gravity? They pushed off Project Gravity to 2024. That's another thing that they pushed off. They keep delaying success, and when you delay success, you may mean success never comes. So my take, if I were a Lucid shareholder, I'd be worried.
Okay, so my take on all that is I like the fact that he actually does call it a success. Clearly shows that it is going to be a very good thing. And yeah, it wasn't the best thing to push it back. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Again, that is a very big truth. And when it comes down to it, he doesn't necessarily bring so much lies, maybe possibly about the battery component of that. And he mostly is just reading the statement or a statement from the earnings and just twisting it and manipulating it to a factor and saying it in a way that gives a little bit more of a questionable appeal to it. So I completely disagree with almost everything that he does say, and for the most part he's just reading off of what the earnings were, not really providing much context. And especially going back to this video as well, again, he was very against Lucid and calling it a complete scam, and more so about the battery capacity, saying that the range couldn't be done and that ultimately it did have, I believe it's 138 or 136 kilowatt hour battery pack. Just Lucid was lying to all of us. I noticed how he did not bring that up in this video. He clearly must have been outsmarted in some aspect or some way or form or whatever it might be. So I do find that very funny, and don't always necessarily listen to individuals like him. But with all of that, I hope you did enjoy this type of video, and hopefully as well you're not taking everything that Warren is saying as complete truth, because I completely disagree with almost everything that he does say. And again, he's just reading off of the prompters basically and just twisting it. With all that said, let me know your thoughts on Lucid in the comments below. If you haven't already, smash the thumbs up, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships, link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With all that said, appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on Lucid.